Welcome back, everybody, to Vitrolife Academy Studio. I would now like to introduce Professor Thomas Freour from Nantes, who is going to do a presentation on a very fast warming protocol. Thomas, thank you.
Thank you, Yaku. Thank you to the Vitrolife group for having me today. I'm very happy to be at this show once again. So I'm going to share with you my experience with the new modified and ultra-fast warming protocol, which, as you may see, results for the same outcome for embryos, but it's much better for the staff. So just a quick introduction about vitrification. I guess everyone is aware of that, of course. It can be considered, at least in my opinion, as the latest true revolution in the field of IVF. It significantly improved embryo survival and clinical outcomes as compared to slow freezing. It allowed the full integration of embryo freezing strategy into IVF lab. And it's a manual method which requires training and precise setup. Vitrification and warming procedures, they are based on progressive exposition to respectively increasing and decreasing concentrations of cryoprotectants, and overall, both for freezing and warming procedures, it can be considered that the procedure takes more or less 15 to 30 minutes per embryo, depending on your experience, your setup, and the kit you use, but still, it's very time-consuming. And in the current context of increasing IVF activity, increasing fertility preservation, and overall increase in freeze-all strategy, this results in more and more freezing cycles and warming cycles, and it leads to a heavy workload with vitrification and warming in already busy IVF setups. So, following very preliminary and interesting reports from the US, Belgium, etc., we were wondering whether it was possible to reduce staff's burden and optimize lab's workflow by shortening the duration of blastocyst warming protocol, while of course maintaining stable clinical outcomes. So I'm going to share rapidly with you our experience in Nantes University Hospital in France, where we've been performing day 5 or day 6 blastocyst vitrification for more than 10 years now. We use it, of course, for supernumerary embryos, and we perform 90% single blastocyst transfer. We also use it for freeze-all cycles and for PGT. We culture all our embryos with a timeless system, and we use kit score day 5 and nowadays IDS score to rank embryos within the cohorts. And we've been using VitBlast and WarmBlast media from Vitrolife for the last 10 years. Here is a little bit of overview of our activity, and as you can see, both for frozen blastocysts with the red line, warm blastocysts, the yellow line, and overall the frozen embryo transfer, the green line, we could see a steady increase in this activity throughout the last 10 years, with more or less an activity who was multiplied by 2.5, except for the year 2020, of course, because of the pandemic. So we are experiencing a huge increase in activity with vitrification and warming. So we were more than interested in anything that could help us improve the outcomes, or at least maintain the outcomes, but help us smooth the lab's workflow. So here is the conventional warming protocol that we were using for the last 10 years. It's based on 3 successive steps. The first is 2 minutes, the second is 3 minutes, and the last one is in between 5 to 10 minutes. And once again, following early reports from colleagues, we were very interested in testing whether using only the first step, only warm one, who is composed of the 0.25 molar of sucrose, would result in something relevant in terms of embryo quality and lab's workflow. So as you can see, the new protocol, which we called ultra-fast, but I guess you might want to call it something else. Anyway, it was much shortened and simplified down to only first step with the warm one medium for 2 minutes. And after this step, we moved the embryos down to the culture media, the JTL in that case, for further culture and transfer. So to summarize, we shortened from 15-20 minutes down to 2 minutes. And of course, that's a game changer in the lab. So we didn't implement this from one day to another. We performed a successive implementation test. The first step was to evaluate on 27 blastocysts donated for research, and we observed similar survival, expansion rates, and we also performed some, let's say, basic science on these embryos because we have this experience in my team. And we could see that the blastocyst quality markers and cell fate markers were maintained and conserved in these embryos with the new protocol as compared to the conventional one. So this was first step and quite reassuring like 1 year ago. Second step was to perform a pseudo-randomized study on 92 blastocysts. And the idea was to compare in a predefined period of time the two protocols. And once again, in 86 frozen-thawed blastocyst transfer cycles, we could see that the survival, the expansion rates, and also the implantation rates were perfectly similar in between these groups. So following these two first steps, basic research, survival, expansion, and implantation rates in the first cycles, we decided to move things forward and to implement this new protocol in clinical practice. And nowadays, well, I should have modified the numbers because nowadays we have more than 1,000 FBT cycles available after 9-10 months of activity. And what I can tell you is that as compared to the same time period last year, we have exactly the same number, the same results for this new ultra-fast warming protocol. The same clinical outcomes, I mean, it's more than 95 survival rate, the same expansion rate, more than 85 re-expansion rate within 2 hours, the same implantation rate in our activity is more or less 40%, and we have the first live birth, but it's too early, of course, to talk about the live birth rate. But still, in our hands, in our activity, in routine practice, for almost a year now, it's been extremely efficient in terms of maintaining the same clinical outcome. And I would say that the main point is not only about the clinical outcome. Of course, it's a matter of lab workflow and staff satisfaction. And everyone in the lab is very happy with this because it brings a lot more flexibility. It's now a matter of 2 minutes. So of course, whenever there's something happening in the lab, whenever you must move from one task to another one, it's much easier to have this in mind that warming blastocysts is only a matter of 2 minutes. Okay? So provided you have maintained clinical outcomes, which we have in our activity, then it's much easier to organize, to set up the lab for the day. If there is, I don't know, if there is unexpected ICSI activity or unexpected embryo biopsy that is coming around, then you know that you can take care of warming blastocysts very easily, and I would say at any time of the day. So, to summarize, it brings a better workflow, it brings more flexibility, and I would say it's much more or less like time-lapse imaging. Time-lapse imaging might not help you increase a lot your clinical outcomes, but it helps you set up your activity, brings more flexibility and more consistency. And just a few words of perspectives. I guess it works. It might be also efficient for all sites, although this needs further confirmation. And there are several reports now from other teams about this ultra-fast warming protocol with the same encouraging protocols. So to conclude, in this context of increasing activity with blastocyst vitrification and warming associated with heavy workload, this ultra-fast warming protocol is able to bring excellent and consistent clinical outcomes, and it helps address the issue of heavy workload in the lab, and where everybody's happy with it on a daily basis. And also it sets the basis for improved freezing program with shorter and standardized procedures and media for not only embryos but also maybe for oocytes. Thank you very much.
Thomas, thank you very much. Any questions from the audience with regards to this ultra-fast method of warming embryos?
According to the noise, I feel like there are 10,000 people looking at us.
But there are.
Yeah, sure.
Online as well.
Well, you wouldn't guess, but it's true.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Thomas. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jaco. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.